coffee and watch all the people who are way better surfers than me absolutely charge up there. And I find it quite relaxing. You can go up there at sunrise, watch the sunrise. But there have been times where I've climbed over that fence and I've sat on that ledge. Not recently, but when I was younger. I like to sit out where those guys are sitting. Now, the thing about doing that, yes, it's irresponsible, and any kids listening, Kayla, don't do that. But as you walk closer to the edge of that ledge, it actually becomes quite stressful. It's fine when you're standing behind the fence where those guys are there, but when you're walking right up to the edge here, it demands your focus. You have to pay attention, because if you don't pay attention, the consequences are huge. And a lot of us are living right on the edge in parts of our worlds. And, we might be living financially on the edge, where an unexpected bill, a car accident, something that you weren't expecting can create huge amounts of pressure. And it can consume your thoughts for days, weeks, or even years. Some of us also live on the edge with our schedules. We actually jam our schedules so full that there is no time for error. If you're inclined for road rage because someone's driving slow, your schedule is too full. Or if you're at the checkout and someone's just really slow and you're getting rage, your schedule's too full. Or if someone is running late in your day and then all of a sudden your whole day is ruined, then you're doing too much. And I'm totally guilty of this, and just to put it out there, I don't have all the answers. This is preaching to myself, because I know that the times that I feel best are when I create margin. And I really feel like God's calling us to that. And then also, we can be living on the edge in our relationships as well, where we haven't created enough margin to invest in it. And then every disagreement becomes bigger than it is. And the conversations become sharper because you just haven't got the space. Things are doing on the run. And side note, we've got a marriage course Wednesday night. Be there. That is one thing you can put into your schedule. You have to bump something else out. But Jesus speaks to this tension in Matthew 6:25. And the verse is going to come up on the screen. It says, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body or what you will wear. Is life not more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they are? How can any one of you, by worrying, add one single hour to your life?" What a beautiful verse. Now, the solution to an overloaded life is not time management, although that might help a little bit. But what Jesus is pointing to is something deeper. When we're pushing ourselves to the limit, the issue isn't our calendar, it's faith. It's a faith issue. It's about whether we know that God is actually going to provide for us and provide what we need. And now often we're not driven by faith because we trust God. We're driven by fear because we're worried about missing out on stuff. Now, FOMO used to be said a lot. It's not said anymore as well as current anymore. But it used to be said a lot, which is that fear of missing out. The fear of falling behind, or the fear of not mattering, not, being significant. We fear that if we slow down and we say no to things, if we spend less and we step back, that we're going to lose an opportunity, we're going to disappoint someone, and we're going to become overtaken by everyone else, and then become less significant because we seem to be taking a step backwards. All of these fears drive us to fill up our calendars, extend our finances, and unfortunately neglect relationships that matter the most, because we're trying to do all these things. But there is really good news. And that is that this is not a modern day problem. As much as we tell ourselves we're only feeling like this because of smartphones, that's actually not true. Yes, it's contributed to it, but the Bible's been talking about this for thousands of years. When you open it, God's always been concerned about the pace that his people live. And that's challenging because they didn't have smartphones. They didn't have notifications, they didn't have calendars, but they lived lives that were full, and they, like us, had the risk of focusing on things that were not good for us. Now, the difference between those in ancient times and us is they actually lived in slavery. For 400 years, the Israelites were living under slavery. So they actually didn't have any choice. You didn't have a choice whether you went to work 24/7. You had to. And if you didn't, you didn't eat. And then, worse, you'd likely be killed because it was actually, you have to do this. So when Jesus, or when God released and freed the Israelites, this is where he started to teach them how to live differently. So he had to teach them, how do you live without that full pressure of striving 24/7? And I'm going to talk about two things because that's all we've got time for. But he gave them practical rhythms on how to trust them. The first one is where he talks about the Sabbath. So the Sabbath, he talks about in Exodus 20. And it's one of the 10 Commandments, so he took it seriously. He was literally commanding them to take a break. And it says, remember the Sabbath by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labour and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, if you've got one, nor your animals, nor any foreigners residing in your towns. For 6 days the Lord made the heaven and the earth, the sea, and all that's in them. And on the seventh day, and he rested on the seventh day. Therefore, the Lord blessed the Sabbath and he made it holy. This would have been so hard for them to hear this teaching, given that they were used to living in that constant state. Imagine the fear that they had when they were told this. And we can be guilty of wearing our busyness like a badge of honour. And I'm guilty of doing this just as much as anyone else, but how often do you go, oh, hey, how you been? It's like, yeah, great, man, I'm so busy. Oh, you're busy? I'm busy. I'm so busy. And then it becomes like, who could be busier? You know, I see you're busy, but I'm like way more busy. And so, yeah, we just... But then, if someone's not busy, we judge them. It's like, you're not busy? Man, you must be lazy. So you're kind of stuck. You're stuck if you're saying you're busy all the time, but then also, like, if you're not busy, it's like, I'm lazy. And don't underestimate the pressure that culture puts on us. That, hey, like, if you're not working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, it's like, you know, you're lazy. You know, that's a lie. And I think that's really what God's telling us. And so, yeah, that idea that the Sabbath is there. Jesus said, this is in Mark, Jesus talking about the Sabbath. He said, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord of even the Sabbath. God gave the Sabbath to us as a gift. The Sabbath was created for rest, renewal, and a space to enjoy God and enjoy our relationships with those people that are around us. Now, we all have different schedules, so this actually isn't a discussion about should you make Saturday a Sabbath or should Sunday be a Sabbath or should you do part Sabbath every day. But this isn't a discussion about this. This is an overall challenge to us to how do we create some margin in our world for God to move.
That's good.
And that might look like getting up early and having some time with God every day. And it's like, I'm just going to create that space. So before I open up my emails at work or look at my calendar or draft responses to people, I'm actually going to throw that away and I'm going to spend some time with God. Because I know that if I can do that, it's going to set myself up, just like God talks about the Sabbath and your effectiveness in 6 days over 7 days. I truly believe that that's what God's calling us for.
Yeah, so good.
And we've all got different schedules. Some of us work shift work, some of us, work Saturdays, some of us work Sundays. Like this isn't about that. It's actually about creating space. And that is an act of faith towards God. The The second part is something that you may not have heard before, but it's around the law of gleaning. And I'm going to read a verse out of Leviticus where it says, when you reap the harvest of your land, do not reap to the very edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. Do not go over your vineyard a second time or pick up the grapes that have fallen. Leave them for the poor and the foreigner. I am the Lord your God. God is telling people not to maximize everything. How countercultural is that? Adam, how would that fly?
It's the hardest verse in the Bible.
It's the hardest verse in the Bible. It is, because there is so much pressure to maximize everything in front of us. But at what cost? At what cost are we maximizing everything? He asks us to trust. God is asking us to trust him with the things that we leave behind.
Yeah, it's good.
The gleaning, the leaving the stuff there that they could have easily picked up is actually going, you know what, God, I could really use that stuff, but I'm going to trust that someone else is going to make use of that stuff and you're going to take care of it.
Yeah.
And I think that is a huge challenge, but also such an exciting journey for all of us. And to be able to lean on these things and go, God, you know what? If I'm going to lose margin in my world because I'm pursuing all the things that I want, but I actually want to enjoy these things. I actually want to enjoy my relationship with God. I want to enjoy my relationship with my friends, with my family. I don't want the things that I value the most to be squeezed out because I'm running on someone else's agenda. And that's a hugely challenging verse, but it's also a hugely exciting verse. And, you know, I just think about my own world and I go, what does my world look like to trust God? And I challenge each of you today, like, what in your world do you feel like you're running out of margin for? And it could be your schedule, and it could be road rage that's the trigger, or the sign that, hey, I probably just need a little bit more space. Maybe it's your relationship. Maybe things are really edgy at home because you don't have enough time. Then create a bit more time. And that means you're going to disappoint someone else, but that's okay. Like, you know, God's asking us to prioritize the things that are important to him. So it's firstly our relationship with him, and then it's our relationship with our immediate family, and then take your pick where it goes to from there. But they're the two things that are the most important things that he calls to us to do. And that's a real step of faith for each of us. And so I really we're going to have a time of prayer shortly, and I'm going to ask the band to come up as we start to finish. But I really want to take some time for us to think about what areas of our life are we starting to see the Smeallie of focus. The best way that I can describe it is like, where in your world do you feel like you're standing on the edge? Because it's so much easier when you just hear, like, I'm still not a long way from the edge, but I'm a lot safer, a lot more comfortable, and God can use me a lot more. It's very hard. You know, I often think about this when, you know, playing silly Barbies with our daughter. Like, you know, it's like, it's hard if you're thinking about something else, but if you actually got some time and you've got some space, then I think that's what we need to step towards. Jesus says this, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. I am gentle and I'm humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light." You know, I'm just really believing that God is going to create a space here tonight where we can not completely alter our schedules. Like, that's not the objective here. It's actually thinking about what's one area that you could change. And maybe it's just one day a week for an hour. You create time for you and God to spend some time. Maybe it's saying no to buying something you don't need, or putting away a percentage of your income to create a buffer. And by doing that, there's going to be a sacrifice along the way, but that sacrifice is going to create some space in your world where, you know, you have margin. You're not going to be stressed every time something comes through that you're not ready for. And imagine we did that as a community as well. Like if we had multiple people modeling that out, like that's a powerful demonstration to people around us that when someone asks us how we are, we're not like, man, I'm so busy. Like, I hate saying that. So if you hear me say that, just say like, yeah, you should drop some things, because it's not a badge of honor, and it's not what God's calling us to do. He's given us capacity to serve Him and to love Him while also doing those other things. So I'd just like us all to stand. I'm going to pray for us, and we're going to spend some time in worship, and then I just really encourage you to come down for some prayer.